some necessary profile to Marianne Williamson and
You
her
guys are
positive
going to
vibes.
poison people into voting for her, and then we're going to have another narcissistic new age boomer, and she's going to like bomb Pakistan for being anti-yoga. I'm sorry. There's no way that this is going to turn out okay.
Okay, Amber. Let me allay your fears. Let me allay your concerns here by introducing another feel-good character who I hope that we can give adequate light and attention to. We are talking about, of course, Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden.
Out of nowhere. I didn't even know. I knew about Bo when he had the brain cancer. Like he was kind of his Joe Kennedy Jr. He was going to be the president or something. And then his brain exploded. I didn't even know he had another son until he had another son, and he's dating the widow of his dead brother and also smokes crack.
It's like when a walk-on from the first season becomes a really important character arc in the third. You just didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
I love Hunter. And I love Hunter because what is every other sort of child of a famed political actor in America? It's, just this fucking 80 IQ idiot married to a fail hedge fund guy who in her spare time tries to impress conservative teens by, trying to get a Muslim congresswoman killed. It's Veruca Salt on The View. It's just the Trump kids who are just, there's just nothing going on there. There's a little funny stuff with Don Jr. and
the pathos of his desire for his dad to like him is
and
kind
his
of
divorcedness. But there's really
Abby Huntsman, just
nothing,
just like resume nitwits who just like all of them. It's like you have a life guaranteed. You will never be at want. You'll never have to actually perform to any specification.
So here's the thing that I think consolidates Hunter Biden's quality. His name is actually Robert.
Really?
Hunter is his middle name. But one day someone was like, nah, you are clearly a hunter. You are the most hunter guy in the world.
Yeah.
No one has ever been more of a hunter.
Robert Biden did not go to a homeless encampment and score crack for a week. Hunter Biden did.
Oh,
though.
absolutely.
I think so. We're going to get into the broad strokes of Hunter, like the reason that he got profiled. But we're going to get into it later a little bit. I think he's like a better person than any presidential kid, and I'm dead serious. But we'll get into that.
The New Yorker had a big piece about Hunter Biden, and I want to go through it with you guys a little bit. And like the thing is, like, I wouldn't say it's like a tragic story. He's experienced tragedy in his life, but I think the word is pathos. There's a certain kind of American pathos to his character that Felix described as like an Alexander Payne movie, and I think that's exactly right. That there's something about him that I don't know, that
he's a messy character. He has flaws.
Mm-hmm. So, with Hunter Biden, I think we have a guy who could be, a breakout star from 2020. And quite honestly, I wish he was running instead of Joe Biden.
He should be, we're talking about how America is just like, it just never ends. We're condemned to each other in the same cycles forever. Every day is like a small, awful crisis, but it doesn't change anything. Who is more perfect to manage that than a guy whose life has been that every day?
Yeah.
Every day of Hunter's life is a little crisis he's created for himself.
I'm just imagining him because the way he responds to any setback or stress in his life. I just imagine him on the debate stage, and he gets owned like the way Kamala Harris owned his dad, and he just like says, well, "Fuck this," and just like takes the mic off and just takes out like a fucking travel thing of Kahlua and just starts chugging. He's like texting his fucking dealer as he's striding off the podium.
Hunter, his media profile is like that of an Alexander Payne, but I think he's more than that. He's like an FX character. He's like someone on Nip Tuck.
Yeah.
He's like someone on Sons of Anarchy. He has the same like moral...
He's an FX character that thinks of himself as a USA Network guy.
Yes.
He thinks he's on burn notice.
Yes.
When he gets drunk and punches someone at a Jimmy Buffett concert.
Yes. He thinks he's on Suits. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
right. He's getting menaced by the Sam Crow for like, because he's like he's selling drugs outside the back of his fucking sporting goods store or something.
No, he's the guy who Jax is like, I know a lawyer who can help us do another motorcycle deal. And it just
Hunter Biden shows up, no tie on, disheveled,
sweating, like half his face is shaved, and he's like, "Sorry, I was in a rush."
It's like, we can't pay you, but we could take you to watch the porno get shot in our porno warehouse. He's like, hot dog.
So I want to go into this big profile of Hunter Biden in the New Yorker. It's titled, "Will Hunter Biden Jeopardize His Father's Campaign?"
Couldn't be further from
No,
it. No,
absolutely
I'm
not.
maxing out to
Absolutely
Joe
not.
Biden
Yeah,
now.
it's like the only positive thing about a Biden presidency would be Hunter Biden running around the world making like deals with like fucking foreign dictators and warlords and like personally smuggling diamonds up his ass. And
When's the last time? I mean, like
There is
Clinton,
a diamond involved in the story,
Yes.
by the way.
Clinton had a
Roger
messy
Clinton.
brother.
Yes,
Carter had a
Billy Carter.
but no one's ever had like a wild and wacky son.
Yeah, no, they haven't. Amazingly enough, the kids tend to be relatively behaved. Patty Davis.
sheltered, yeah.
Patty Davis is probably the best example. And they would
Alice
always
Ro-
point out that she was adopted.
Alice Roosevelt, maybe.
Alice Roosevelt, yes,
But
that's
Alice
the closest
Roosevelt was
thing we're talking
like
about.
cool. She was like wild. Like
Yeah.
she was sort of
She
like
was a flapper.
forward
She was a
thinking.
proto-flapper.
What about Rosemary Kennedy?
They took care of that business.
Asshole.
Okay, so let's jump into this New Yorker profile here. It goes, it's just
George W. Bush, but they took care of him.
Yeah,
So it starts out talking about Joe Biden, his presidential campaign. He's leading in the polls, but he has some weaknesses, shall we say? And he goes, "Yet the family story that Biden tells in quote, 'Promise me, Dad, a year of hope, hardship, and purpose.'" Because we all know like the Beau story figures very largely in his campaign narrative. The tragedy of losing his son in the prime of his life. Again, the elder good son who is just like Joe described him as all of my strengths and none of my weaknesses.
Let's be honest. I got kind of a dud in one, and one son. Boy, I'll tell you, he was everything with the bells on. What, Joe?
So he goes, largely glosses over a central character in Biden's life. Biden writes, "I was pretty sure Beau could run for president someday, and with his brother's help, he could win."
With his brother's help, doing what?
Hunter Biden, who is 49, is described as a supportive son and sibling. In his speeches, Biden rarely talks about Hunter, but news outlets on the right and mainstream media organizations, including The Times, have homed in on him, reprising old controversies over Hunter's work for a bank, for a lobbying firm, and for a hedge fund, and scrutinizing his business dealings in China and Ukraine. There is little question that Hunter's proximity to power shaped the arc of his career, and that, as the former aide told me, Hunter is a super rich terrain.
Yes.
I agree.
He is a rich terrain indeed.
He has peaks. He has valleys.
Yes.
He has tributaries.
He's marbled, you could say.
Yeah.
And it goes on, the gossip pages have seized on Hunter's tumultuous private life. He has struggled for decades with alcohol, addiction, and drug abuse. He has went through an acrimonious divorce from his first wife, Kathleen Buell Biden, and has had a subsequent relationship with Beau's widow, Hallie. He was recently sued for child support by an Arkansas woman, London Alexis Roberts, who claims that he is the father of her child.
He's basically every R relationship post in one person.
He's not the guy Raylan Givens is after, but he's the guy who Raylan goes up to and he's like, God, I don't care about whatever bullshit you have going on, Hunter. You're going to tell me who stole those microchips.
No, he is like the guy who marries Raylan's ex.
Yes.
And totally fucks up with the Kentucky mob and then has to like flee.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so it goes here, talking about a rally. On stage at the rally, Jill Biden introduced her husband. The Biden family is ready, she said. We will all do as we always have as a family. Seated in white chairs to the side of the stage were Ashley Biden, Hunter's half-sister, Ashley's husband, Howard Crane, Beau's children, Natalie, and Robert Hunter, Hunter's three daughters, Maisie, Finnegan, and Naomi's boyfriend, Peter. The last seat in the row with a piece of paper on it that said reserved remained empty. In one of my early conversations with Hunter, he told me about his sadness at having missed his father's event. Beau and I have been there since we were carried in baskets during his first campaign, he said. We went everywhere with him. At every single major event and every small event that he had to do with his political career, I was
baskets up until we were 20 years old.
I've never missed a rally for my dad. The notion that I'm not standing next to him in Philadelphia, next to the Rocky statue, it's heartbreaking for me. It's killing me and it's killing him. Dad says, be here. Mom says, be here, but at what cost? So already, I mean, my heart is breaking for this guy.
Okay, so all those other presidential kids, Like it's entirely transactional, or they're just fucking dullards. It's
Or
like
they're like just automatons.
Right.
Like, think of Chelsea
they're
Clinton.
either Chelsea. They're either
Chelsea Clinton was raised in like a vat.
Right. It's either like Chelsea and Eric or Abby Huntsman, or like just a fucking monster, like Meghan McCain or someone like that. But Hunter legitimately thinks that, like, no, my dad has to save this country. I have to help him, but I'm just too fucked up. Like, this is tragic. Like, it's as tragic as, like, yeah, the son of a vice president who's like works for some scummy influence peddling law firm thing, but like. I like the guy. I'm sorry, man.
I'm saying, like, but he's been through dark. He's walked in shadows.
Yes.
He's walked in darkness. You know,
Yeah, like
a lot of people
Meghan
do.
McCain's formative tragedy is like, oh, my 900-year-old father
yeah,
died.
exactly. And she still hasn't gotten over that. She's still milking that. So
This guy watched his fucking brother die. His mom died. His fucking brother died.
So he's walked through darkness.
No, he's actually had travails.
And he goes, he wanted to protect his father from a trickle of disclosures and to share a personal narrative that he sees no reason to hide. Look, every family faces pain, he said. Everybody has trauma. There's addiction in every family. I was in that darkness. I was in that tunnel. It's a never-ending tunnel. You don't get rid of it. You figure out how to deal with it.
I don't know that there's addiction in every family.
Also, in many families.
In many
America,
families, but that's the kind of normative statement that betrays.
That yes.
Well, that's the thing about this guy is that he's very incredibly. He has had problems in his life, and he has had real
Look,
pain.
it's normal.
But he's
everyone has wrapped a car around a tree sometimes.
He's also incredibly self-serving and self-absolving because he's always been able to get out of all the problem because of his family.
And now the article then proceeds to go through like a lot of his early career that follows like a similar path from a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people from his background, and that he gets a law degree and then gets these jobs that are not like, well, not at least compared to the Trump era, not as ludicrously openly corrupt as that. At least, if not like by the letter of the law illegal, at least raise some eyebrows about how close your lobbying and legal work is to your dad's job as a senator.
He got hired right out of law school by the biggest at the time, the biggest bank in Delaware that was also the top contributor to Biden. And that's what's funny. That's what's funny about Biden, because he's famously, and we've talked about this, how he's one of the poorest senators. He never personally got rich by being the handmaiden of all these awful companies in Delaware. But
because he's not good at it.
But Hunter shows you is that the real value here isn't even necessarily your own wealth, because at a certain level, if you're a senator, certainly, you're going to get enough comps that you're going to be able to live relatively high on the hog, even if you're not actually taking cash. But more importantly, your fucking dumbass kids are never going to be a huge burden on you. You are guaranteed that they will be able to have careers that keep them from, having to live in the basement or whatever. That's the real value of having these connections.
I feel like there's like this weird mirror between Hunter and Don Jr., right? Where they both are like, no, I'm good at this thing that I do that I've gotten entirely because of who my dad is. With Don Jr., it's like, I'm a businessman. I just say, put the building over here, and sometimes it goes up. I'm helping my dad get elected by just going up to a crowd of 65-year-old men and telling them about Groyper. And for Hunter, it's like, no, yeah, I'm a great lawyer. I worked really hard on this, and his job is like to put together a conference call between like the Chinese military and like some fucking surveillance company or whatever. But there is a pathos in both of them. But Don Jr.'s pathos manifests in like, all right, I just gotta be this like racist, nasty asshole. I have to kill elephants. I have to do all this shit to like make my dad like me. And Hunter doesn't know what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
There's this tragedy in Hunter that throughout the story, you see that he does things he does really good things sometimes, like the homeless woman, right?
Yeah.
There's this homeless woman that he would always give money to like get cigarettes in DuPont Circle and be like, yeah, keep the change. He'd give her like $100. And then he let her sleep in his 2-bedroom. But it's the sense that he wants to be a good person, but he doesn't know how to do it.
The sense I got from reading this article, there's this very clear path laid out for him. That's like, that's there regardless of any of his effort or will or like self-awareness. It's just there for him. and he's filled into that, like water finding its own level. When you're the son of someone like someone like Joe Biden, and he's always done it, but he's never
questioned
feels-
whether or not that's the thing for him to
but
do.
he's felt lost the entire time and has gone from one thing to another, never really fitting into this path, and then like very occasionally spinning wildly out of it.
Like Hunter played high school football and considered quitting once because he wanted to take a creative writing class or something. Brought it up to his dad. His dad laughed at him. He never thought about it again.
Right. The villain of this story is in no ways Hunter. It's Joe. Like, Joe seems like a fucking asshole of a father. Not in the sense that he was like abusive, but just like
He's
he
a
didn't
too hard
pay attention.
handshake guy.
Yeah, he just didn't fucking pay attention.
So it says here, going on, Joe Biden grew up around relatives with alcohol problems, and at a young age, he decided to abstain. Again, very similar to Donald Trump, whose brother was an alcoholic, and he's always associated drinking with
being a loser.
being a loser and with being weak, more important than anything. So
The greatest generals in history all drank soda.
So it said, Hunter, who spoke frankly to me about his struggles with addiction, started drinking socially as a teenager. While he was a student at Georgetown in the early 90s, he took up smoking Marlboro Red cigarettes and occasionally used cocaine. Once hoping to buy cocaine, he was sold a piece of crack, but he wasn't sure how to take the drug. I didn't have a stem, Hunter said. I didn't have a pipe. Improvising, he stuffed the crack into a cigarette and smoked it. It didn't have much of an effect, he said. In 2001, Hunter, Kathleen, and their children moved back to Washington to be closer to the rest of the Biden family. And Hunter connected to Washington on Amtrak, as his father did. Sometimes he missed the train and stayed in a rental room at the Army-Navy Club. When I found myself making the decision to have another drink or get on the train, I knew I had a problem. Now, Hunter Biden's drug abuse figures largely in this story, and his use of crack cocaine is also like a major, probably like the bold thing that everyone talks about. Again, I bring this up not because Hunter is a villain here. Many people, struggle with drug addiction and, have come out of it or still dealing with it. I bring it up because, once again, Joe is the villain, because while this is all going on in the background, Joe Biden was the guy rigorously escalating the war on drugs and is the guy who, with Strom Thurmond, is responsible for the mandatory minimum disparity in sentencing between powder and rock cocaine.
And it's one of Joe Biden's most underrated crimes is his role as an architect in the modern war on drugs. Everything that you seems fucking insane to you now about how we treat like the opiate crisis, about how we, will sentence like users of crack versus users of cocaine or whatever. Like it's Joe Biden. It's fucking Joe Biden working with Strom Thurmond.
And throughout this story, Hunter goes in and out of rehab and, relapses a lot to, cocaine and alcohol, similar to the way, again, many people have, but, he never went to jail for 20 fucking years and had his life destroyed, as basically an entire generation did, as a result of the crack hysteria, the quote epidemic in the 80s and 90s in America. So, again, the article goes into very long detail about his business dealings with a company in the Ukraine and also China, that Hunter would be along on these official delegations. Again, not very clear, what the overlap between public and private and family and business is, especially when your dad is in the government and the vice president.
I totally believe, by the way, what he says in this thing of how he was always very conscious of the appearance of impropriety and he never wanted to do it. But at the end of the day, those were the jobs that were available to him. Those was the way to get money, to keep his multiple families in the style they'd become accustomed to. Was some sleazy piece of shit would be like, hey, you want to join my consulting firm or my hedge fund? He's like, yeah, sure. That sounds like a wonderful adventure. I love helping entrepreneurs be put in contact with sources of revenue so that they can grow the economy. And meanwhile, they're all just these blood-drenched monsters trying to, around his back and using him as a conduit, make all these incredibly corrupt connections. And he's just dopily the front man for all of it. Just very, wow, amazing. This is great. The entrepreneurial spirit on display here is really inspiring.
So he goes,
it's like, yeah, hey, that's great, Hunter. Hey, do you mind fucking smuggling this suitcase full of Krugerrands into Donbass? Sure, that sounds like a wonderful thing.
When I asked members of Biden's staff whether they discussed their concerns with the vice president, several of them said that they had been too intimidated to do so. Everyone who works for him has been screamed at, a former advisor told me. Others said that they were wary of hurting his feelings. One business associate told me that Biden, during difficult conversations about his family, got deeply melancholy, which to me is more painful than if someone yelled and screamed at me. It's like you've hurt him terribly. That was always my fear, that I would be really touching a very fragile part of him.
Biden is the perfect patriarch older patriarch in an Alexander Payne movie, because he's sort of like haranguing, manipulative in this subtle way.
Cold and withdrawn, will withhold any attention.
Yeah, very thoughtfully like deals out his charm to sway people. He's perfect.
About Schmidt is, I think, a good analog here.
Yes.
So it says, of course, Vice President Biden was playing a central role in overseeing U.S. policy in Ukraine and took the lead in calling on Kiev to fight rampant corruption. On May 13th, 2014, after Hunter's role in the Burisma board was reported in the news, Jen Psaki, a State Department spokesperson, said the State Department was not concerned about perceived conflicts of interest because Hunter was, quote, a private citizen. Several former officials in the Obama administration at the State Department insisted that Hunter's role in Burisma, again, this shady Ukrainian company, had no effect on his father's policies in the Ukraine, but said that nevertheless, Hunter should not have taken the board seat. As the former senior White House aide put it, there was a perception that Hunter was on the loose, potentially undermining his father's message.
Hunter on the loose. There's your title.
Yeah.
That just, that really rolls off the tongue.
Okay, here's my favorite part of the story. So it says here, Hunter saw himself as a provider for the Biden family, and he even helped to pay off Bo's law school debts. But he often wished that, like his father and his brother, he could contribute more to society. Through his business, he got to know an Australian-American former military intelligence officer named Greg Keeley, who regaled him with stories about his career in the Royal Australian Navy. After moving to the United States at 40, Keeley had obtained an age waiver to join the U.S. Navy as a resident. While on reserve duty at a U.S. military base in southern Afghanistan on September 11, 2011, he and members of his unit watched Vice President Biden deliver a speech at the Pentagon about the attacks of 9/11. After the speech, Keeley sent an email to Hunter to tell him that members of his unit thought the vice president's message was, quote, spot on. Hunter passed the note to his father, who wrote Keeley an email. Keep your heads down, he said. You are the finest group of warriors in all of history.
Settle down.
Keeley helped convince Hunter that it wasn't too late for him to join the Navy Reserves. He told me my message to him was, if you feel the call to serve, which I encourage, it doesn't really matter what your rank is or what's on your shoulder board. It's that you're serving your country. Hunter took that message to heart and acted upon it. Again, this idea that, like, he's been doing all these jobs, serving, like, you know, just found himself on the board of some Ukrainian company that was, you know, pseudo connected to his own father's anti-corruption efforts, or at least working against them, at the very least. Or all the, like, the law firm, all these, like, you know, lobbying things that, again, in the article he says, you know, we always had, like, we never even talked about it, that I would never talk about my clients with my dad. And you know what? I kind of believe him. But the thing is, it's just unmistakable, like the appearance of what's going on, whether or not it's corrupt. But then, he has a need inside him to do something better, or something that, like, he feels like is good for him or the world.
Because he knows at a certain level that this has all just been handed to them. Even if he says, I did a good job, he knows that he is useless. He's a fucking USB cord between money and influence. That's all he is. And he wants to be something else. But he's also a dumb, shiftless shithead who doesn't have any skills or ability.
But compare this. Okay, so Mayor Pete, like, probably from the time he was like 15, was like, all right, so I got to go the Ivy League track. You know, I need an officer job in the military.
Self-driven, precocious.
Yeah, but Hunter Biden, after just like a few years of, like, being the USB cord, probably drinking some weird Gentile cocktail like Bailey's and gin, just going off, you know, doing Hunter things. He's like,
Hunter things.
He's like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
I gotta fucking do something, and that's why he joins the military as a much older guy, getting nothing out.
Oh,
of
he
it.
was like well into his 40s at this point.
That's awesome.
And he could, like,
It's not awesome to join the military, but like that his brain works like that he's like, fuck this. Like, it's so, like, God, I love him.
So
Still thinks he can find himself.
So
Yes.
but this is the best part. He goes, with a letter of recommendation from Keeley, Hunter applied for an age waiver, which the Navy granted. The service has a zero-tolerance drug and alcohol abuse policy and states that all recruits will be asked questions about prior drug and alcohol use. Hunter disclosed that he had used drugs in the past, but said that he was sober now, and the Navy granted him a second waiver. Hunter had suffered his first relapse after 7 years of sobriety in November 2010 when he drank 3 Bloody Marys on a flight home from a business trip to Madrid. He continued to drink in secret for several months, then confided in Bo and returned to Crossroads Center. He had another relapse in early 2013 after he suffered from a bout of shingles for which he was prescribed painkillers. When the prescription ran out, he resumed drinking. On May 7, 2013, he was assigned to a reserve unit at a naval station, Norfolk. He had hoped to work in naval intelligence, but was given a job in a public affairs unit. At a small private ceremony at the White House, Hunter was sworn in by his father. Later that month, the night before Hunter's first week of reserve duty, he stopped at a bar a few blocks from the White House. Outside, Hunter said he bummed a cigarette from 2 men who told him that they were from South Africa. He felt, quote, amped up as he was driving down to Norfolk and then incredibly exhausted. He told me that he called Bo and said, I don't know what's going on. Bo drove from Delaware to meet Hunter at a hotel near the naval station. He got me shipshape and drove me to the base, he said. On his first day, Hunter had a urine sample taken for testing. A few months later, he received a letter saying that urinalysis had detected cocaine in his system.
Wah, wah.
Which means he just did.
Yeah, he just did it.
like that morning.
Under Navy rules, a positive drug test typically triggers a discharge. Hunter wrote a letter to the Navy Reserve saying that he didn't know how the drug had gotten in his system and suggested that the cigarettes he'd smoked outside the bar might have been laced with cocaine. So he gets a lawyer or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But essentially, there's a lot of closed-door hearings. He's discharged from the Navy.
Love to lace my cigarettes with cocaine.
That's the best. That's the way the teens are doing it.
Yeah.
That's the most efficient way to get high.
Yeah, they call it a hunter.
So then, after that, he goes to various yoga-related rehabs at the Esalen Center in California, which I think we've discussed before on the show. So it says, on June 6, 2015, thousands of people paid their respects at a service in St. Anthony Church in Wilmington. This is after his older brother Bo, tragically died of brain cancer. The next day, President Obama, Ashley Biden, and Hunter, who was fearful of public speaking, delivered eulogies. On the drive back to Washington, Hunter, moved by the outpouring of support for him and his family at the funeral, told Kathleen, his then wife at the time, that he was thinking about running for public office. She pointed out that he had only recently been discharged from the Navy after testing positive for cocaine. They rode the rest of the way home in silence. Kathleen declined to comment for this article.
Wow,
but again,
Kathleen sounds like a fucking unsupportive bitch.
But
Just
again,
like the only reasonable person in his life. Just being like, I don't know if you can handle that kind of pressure right now. And it's like, bitch, you don't support my dreams that I just had 20 minutes
Literally
ago.
5 minutes ago.
Like, think how exhausting this would be. Like he's just constantly in like Panama.
It would be like
Yeah.
being married to a Jack Russell Terrier.
Yes, yeah. And then every month he's like, I think I can get into the Joffrey. It's just a new thing all the time.
well, yeah. First, it's like I want to be in my mid 40s, become a naval intelligence officer. Oops, popped pause for cocaine, and then immediately after that, he's like, I think I'm going to run for office. It's very powerful.
It would
brain.
take a lot out of you.
Yeah. So, and then again, this story's very long. It goes into he's, in and out of various treatments and rehabs and things like that, including a program that required him to carry a breathalyzer with a built-in camera. Later that summer, Ashley Madison, a dating service for married people, which used the slogan, life is short, have an affair, disclosed that hackers had breached its data.
I
You can
remember
see
that.
where this is
That was
going.
hilarious.
Hunter practiced yoga daily. A teacher from his yoga studio told me, I don't think I've ever seen a person try it as hard to heal as he did. When he stopped coming to class, the teacher went to his apartment near Logan Circle and knocked on the door. Hunter told me he pretended not to be at home.
That also appears to be a breach of the yoga teacher-student relationship there.
But that's that's how powerful Hunter is. That's the sort of thing that only happens in movies. Like Hunter has this energy where people interact with it. Like he goes to a fucking yoga class and they just see this 40-year-old man stretching, and there is this aura about him that if he doesn't show up, this yoga instructor is like, where did he go? I have to find him. I have to see what happened.
Worry.
Yeah, who is he? I need him.
So during this period when he is basically shifting through various, yoga retreats, rehabs, just, numerous different strategies for dealing with this. He begins a relationship with Haley, his brother's widow, because they share a kind of connection. And he said
and also he has this magnetism.
Yeah,
He does.
and it goes here. That fall, Hunter made plans to go to the Grace Grove Lifestyle Center in Sedona, Arizona. During a layover at Los Angeles International Airport before his connecting flight to Phoenix, he went to a nearby hotel bar and realized he had left his wallet on the plane. It had belonged to Bo and still contained his Attorney General identification bag and also Hunter's driver's license, without which he couldn't board the flight. Using a credit card he had in his pocket, he checked into a hotel where he waited for the airline to return the wallet. I mean, you can see where this is going. This is just like miss your connection, end up in a motel. He ends up in LA's Skid Row buying crack. At that point, someone puts a gun to his head before they realized he was a buyer. And then he basically would just spent some time in a motel buying crack from Skid Row and just not being in contact with anyone. Hunter said at that point he had not slept for several days. Driving east on Interstate 10 just beyond Palm Springs, he lost control of his car, which jumped the median and skidded to a stop on the shoulder on the westbound side. He called Hertz, which came to collect the damaged car, and gave him a second rental. Later, on a sharp bend on a mountainous road, Hunter recalled a large barn owl flew in front of the hood of the car and then seemed to follow him, dropping in front of the headlights.
This is his spirit animal like experience.
He said that he had no idea whether the owl was real or a hallucination. On the night of October 28th, Hunter dropped the car off at a Hertz office in Prescott, Arizona, and Grace Grove sent the van to pick him up. So Zach Romfro, who worked at the Hertz office in Prescott, told me he found a crack pipe in the car. On one of the consoles, a line of white powder residue. Bo Biden's Attorney General badge was on the dashboard. Hertz called the Prescott Police Department, and officers there filed a narcotics offense report listing the items seized from the car, including a plastic baggie containing... First of all...
His life is a movie written by an asshole.
This is like that A Million Little Pieces shit, but not total bullshit.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, he's like, this is not a complete fiction. But by the way, why is the Hertz rent-a-car company just immediately calling the cops if they find a stem?
I think everyone should know that. Hertz will fucking dime you out.
Just throw it out.
Fuck Hertz.
You know what it is? It's that like the woman who like he returned the keys to like looked at him and was drawn in by his magnetism, and then she went and saw it and she's like, he's in trouble. I have to do something. It's the only way to save him.
No, it's more drama if it's Hunter. Like the woman was like, who was that guy? And the manager who's had a crush on her and also his marriage is falling apart was like, a fucking asshole, that's who. And then searched the car. Hunter just like everywhere he goes, he's an FX series.
Totally.
And every ripple he creates is like an ABC series.
So, of course, at this time, Kathleen files for divorce. In court, there are, of course, allegations of drugs, alcohol, prostitutes, strip clubs, and gifts for women with whom he has had sexual relationship, while leaving the family no funds to pay legitimate bills. Kathleen told friends she felt ostracized by the Biden family. Hunter denied hiring prostitutes and said that he hadn't been to a strip club in years. But he said the evening the story was published, I went directly to a strip club. I said, fuck them.
Yep. I guess I'm going to be who you say I am. I hate being at this strip club, but you people and your fucking lies just made me have to go.
How old was he?
He's in his mid to late 40s.
Yeah.
40, like 45-year-old man with kids being like, fuck them. Like, so awesome.
Hunter said that in divorce proceedings, he offered to give Kathleen everything, including a monthly payment of $37,000 for alimony, tuition, and childcare costs for a decade.
Oh my God.
One of
What a baller.
One of Kathleen's motions contains a reference to, quote, a large diamond that had come into Hunter's possession. The motion seems to imply that it was one of Hunter's personal indulgences. When I asked him about it, he told me he had been given the diamond by the Chinese energy tycoon Yi Jianming, who was trying to make connections in Washington among prominent Democrats and Republicans, and whom he had met in the middle of the divorce. Hunter told me
He's like, oh no, I wasn't buying something for a mistress. This was just an incredible like perk from my super corrupt career.
And he goes, Hunter told me that two associates accompanied him to his first meeting with Ye in Miami, and they had surprised him by Ye giving him a magnum of rare vintage scotch worth thousands of dollars. It just basically says he went to his hotel after a meeting, and there was just a giant diamond waiting for him.
They just really liked how he did a handshake. It was a really strong, powerful handshake, and they're like, give this man a diamond. for his handshake powers.
In February 2018, Ye was detained by Chinese authorities, reportedly as part of an anti-corruption investigation, and the deal with Hunter fell through. Hunter said that he did not consider Ye to be a shady character at all, and instead characterized the outcome as bad luck.
There's nothing weird about giving someone really expensive scotch and a diamond.
Yes. I have a nice night out.
It's just
I meet some
business.
friends, and I am bejeweled.
That's a business dinner.
It's business bejewels.
Like I said, he's been through some darkness, but like I'm skipping a lot. Let's get to the happy ending of this story.
Yes.
In early May, Hunter met a 32-year-old South African woman named Melissa Cohen, a filmmaker who was working on a series of documentaries about indigenous tribes in southern Africa. A few days later, after their first date, Hunter had the word shalom tattooed in Hebrew letters on the inside of his left bicep.
That's, by the way, the most relapse move I've ever heard of.
He's going to join the IDF.
He picked the holiest word in the Hebrew language. Hello. He's so awesome.
Hello.
He's so awesome.
He had the tattoo on the inside of his left bicep to match a tattoo that Cohen has in the same spot. On May 15th, less than a week after they met, he proposed. The next morning, she accepted, and he bought the simplest gold wedding band he could find, then called the marriage service, which sent over an affidavit. A month later, on the roof deck of Cohen's apartment off the Sunset Strip, Cohen sat on a bench next to Hunter, who was wearing jeans and a T-shirt emblazoned with the slogan, "Be fucking nice."
Oh, Mike, it's the Virgin Don Jr.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, my dad watches your network. Can we please date? I have to go kill an elephant, so my dad likes me. Hunter, all right, I got to get some keyboard duster to, like, even out the high from these Roxy's. Oh, my God, this fucking ruby-encrusted scimitar. Where did I get this? Fuck.
If Hunter
Oh, my God, I met you last week. I love you. Can I get you pregnant now?
If Hunter weren't, raised in like a PMC, isolation tank and pushed along by probably an emotionally very withholding, aggressive, patriarchal father figure, he would not even be a manager at Hot Topic right now.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, especially regarding his dad's, hyper escalation of the war on drugs, as you read this story, and it's just a revolving door of like treatment centers and rehabs. He's checking himself in and out of yoga retreats at Esalen. And it's like, honestly, I think everyone who deals with drug and alcohol problems should be able to do that. But quite frankly, the vast majority of them are in and out of a different kind of facility
Right.
until they just fucking die.
Right.
So.
But also, I think maybe some of the nature of those facilities not necessarily taking very well for him might have to do with like the amount of freedom he has been given.
Well, I mean, drug treatment in America is like awful. It's a fucking scam. I actually think we should do an episode about it. But
Oh, yeah.
there are two kinds: throw you in jail, or you get to go to a spa where everyone says, "Actually, you're a magical being made of light."
Yeah, every one of his fucking rehab assignments is a vacation.
Right.
He went to like a Mexican beach to like do yoga for 6 months and like have smoothie enemas. Meanwhile, in a lot of this country, if you go to rehab, you're literally made a slave at like a poultry factory. Like they make you work for no
Right.
money.
It doesn't work
Like
for the
gutting
rich, and it
chickens.
doesn't work for the poor. We
Yeah.
like haven't figured out that it's neither like a luxury service nor prison.
Yeah.
Right.
So, again, here's some light in the darkness. He recalled that after the ceremony, I called my dad and said that we just got married. He was on speaker, and he said to her, "Thank you for giving my son the courage to love again." Hunter paused, his eyes filling with tears, and he said to me, "Honey, I knew that when you found love again, that I'd get you back." Cohen rubbed his shoulders. He went on, and my reply was, I said, "Dad, I have always had love, and the only thing that allowed me to see it was the fact that you never gave up on me, and you always believed in me." Hunter told me that on a recent evening he had seen, this is the very last paragraph, he had seen reports on Twitter that Trump was calling for him to be investigated by the Justice Department. Then Hunter noticed
Fuck you, Trump.
Then Hunter noticed a helicopter overhead. I said, "I hope they're taking pictures of us right now. I hope it's a live feed to the president so he can see just how much I care about the tweets." He went on, "I told Melissa, I don't care. Fuck you, Mr. President.
Yes.
Here I am living my life."
Yes.
He's so fucking cool.
He no one He has like protagonist syndrome.
Yeah.
He believes he is the
He
protagonist.
is the protagonist of reality.
Honestly, if they bring him like Trump, literally he backs down from strong personalities. He backs
That's
down
true,
from
yeah.
defiant people like Maduro, Kim Jong. Like when people are just like, don't take his bluster and are like, suck my dick, dude. He's like, he's actually
Yeah, no,
smart as me.
He shows his belly.
Like if he read that, he'd be like, I'm replacing Jared with Hunter.
Or it's like Hunter called to testify, and like one of those like Louis Gomer trying to grill him. Or it would be like the Army McCarthy here. He'd be like, "Sir, at long last, you are the real fucking drug addict."
He comes in there wearing like a spiritual gangster T-shirt, some other dumb shit for like 40-year-olds. All the aides to like Steve King, all of them, they're just like, who is that? Like all the women are fanning themselves. He's just like, he takes one hit off and Jewel fucking whips it over his shoulder. It hits James Einhoff in the head, cracks his glasses. No one gives a shit. They're like, what are your business contacts? And he's like, I have a different kind of contact, the kind between soul and soul. And they're like, what the fuck?
Some might say that before me sit the august representatives of the American people. But, sirs, all I see is a bunch of seagulls fighting over French fries.
Hunter 2020.
Critical support for Hunter Biden.
Who would he run with? Just
God.
It would be the first.
his choice for vice would just be a giant pile of like divorced dad bracelets.
No, his choice for vice president would be the Steve Earle character from The Wire, who's just his sponsor and running mate.
Absolutely.
Wait, no, I got it. It's Daughtry. Probably Hunter Biden's favorite artist.
I mean, I'll also say weathered, but Hunter, definitely a hunk.
Very hot.
Good looking guy.
Yeah, he's a
Dummy hot.
So
He's kept his hair, too, unlike his fucking
Yes.
So there you go. That is the saga of Hunter Biden. We'll leave you with that for this week. But before we go, I do have a very important plug to make.